What if you were shown a map that shouldn't exist? Imagine a fragile piece of gazelle parchment, yellowed with age and covered in calligraphic Arabic script. On it, with astonishing, almost mathematical precision, are the coastlines of South America and West Africa. The date of creation, 1513. The author, Ottoman admiral and cartographic genius Haji Muhyiddin Piri ibn Haji Mehmed, known as Piri Reis. This all seems like a priceless historical artifact. That is, until your gaze drifts to the southernmost edge of the map. There, where there should be an icy, lifeless desert, lies a landmass. A detailed coastline with rivers flowing into the sea and mountain ranges. A land we know today as Antarctica. But here lies the paradox, one that takes your breath away. Antarctica would not be officially discovered by a Russian expedition for another 300 years in 1820. And certainly no one in the 16th century could have known what its true coastline looked like beneath a crushing 2-kilometer thick ice sheet. Perhaps it's just a mistake, a flight of fancy by an ancient cartographer. But what if it's not a mistake? What if it's an accurate, almost photographic imprint of reality? Modern geological data, obtained from ice core drilling, confirms that Antarctica was indeed ice-free. But the last time that happened was approximately 4400 BC, 6,000 years ago. This fact, cold and irrefutable, means that the original source of the Piri Reis map was created long before the Roman Empire, long before the construction of Stonehenge and the first dynasties of Egypt. At a time when, as official history assures us, humanity was just beginning to scratch its first marks on clay tablets. This map is not just an artifact, it's a clue, a technical document that shatters our linear chronology. It literally screams that a civilization existed in deep antiquity, a civilization that possessed global knowledge and was capable of mapping the entire world. We are accustomed to thinking of history as a smooth, straight line of progress, an arrow flying from stone axes to smartphones. But this piece of parchment, lying under armored glass in an Istanbul museum, refutes that comforting concept. In this investigation, we will follow the trail of this anomaly. We will examine every line, every mysterious inscription in the map's margins. We will weigh all the scientific evidence obtained through seismic surveys and satellite scanning. And we will listen to the boldest, most heretical theories. By the end of this story, you will see all the evidence and be able to decide for yourself. Is our history complete? Or has an entire chapter been ripped out? A chapter about a civilization of sea kings that we lost? Let's go back to 1513, to Constantinople. This is not just a city, it's a buzzing hive of civilization, the capital of the world. Here, the scent of spices from the Bosphorus mingles with the clang of hammers from weapon workshops. An admiral serves in the palace of Sultan Selim I. His name, Haji Muhyiddin Piri Ibn Haji Mehmed, known to us as Piri Reis. He was not merely the terror of Christian fleets in the Mediterranean. He was a scholar, obsessed with geography. Imagine his cabin, permeated with the smell of sea salt and old maps. Alongside his scimitar and astrolabe lay dozens of scrolls, ancient portolans, Arabic and Portuguese maps. He collected them in battles, bought them from spies. He was convinced that knowledge of the world was the true key to power over it. For the Ottoman Empire, which was striving for world domination, an accurate map was not a luxury. It was a strategic weapon. Think about it. Such a map allowed for military campaigns to be planned with surgical precision, for trade routes to be laid out to bypass competitors, and for the Ottomans to stay ahead of the Portuguese and Spanish, who had already begun to divide America. Piri Reis's work was a matter of national importance. He was creating for his sultan the most perfect geopolitical tool, an operating system for governing the world. And so, the colossal work was completed. The map, drawn on select gazelle skin, lay before the Sultan. And then it disappeared. It dissolved into the labyrinthine palace archives for 4 long centuries. The world forgot about it. It was only in 1929, during an inventory of the Topkapi Palace Library, that it was found. Accidentally. It lay in the dust, unwanted, until German theologian Gustav Deissmann realized he held something that could hack history. The sensation made headlines. But when the initial excitement subsided, it became clear you were looking in the wrong place. The true value of this map was not in who drew it, nor even in when. The main secret, a real-time bomb, was hidden in its source code, in what it was compiled from. For Piri Reis himself, with the meticulousness of a scholar, left a key in the map's margins, a key to its unthinkable enigma. In his notes, he honestly states, "I am not the original discoverer. I am a compiler." Imagine his work. It wasn't a quiet scholar's study. It was an information battlefield. He sat in his cabin, permeated with sea salt, under the dim light of an oil lamp. Before him was not a blank sheet, but cartographic chaos. Dozens of scrolls, fragile papyri, crude mariners' portolans, maps where north was our east, coordinate systems that didn't align. It was like trying to run an Apple program on a Windows computer, written in Babylonian cuneiform code. His task was not to draw, but to crack, to find a common denominator, to assemble a single, consistent puzzle from fragments of ancient, fading knowledge. And the admiral, with a criminalist's meticulousness, lists his sources. He writes that he used about 20 different maps. He lays them out on the table like a poker player. Here are the latest Portuguese maps captured in battle. Here are Arabic maps, verified by centuries of navigation. And here is his joker, his trump card that beats everything, 8 maps he calls Jaffaria, created, as he writes, during the time of Alexander the Great, in the 4th century BC. Stop for a second. Just consider that statement. A shiver will run down your spine. Maps from the time of Alexander the Great. This means that 1,800 years before Piri Reis, a global cartographic network existed. 1,800 years. That's more than the entire history, from the crucifixion of Christ to the invention of the steam engine. And all this time, as official history assures us, the best minds of humanity thought the Earth was flat. But Piri Reis's record says no. That's a lie. Or even more terrifying, it's just a firewall. A wall hiding the existence of another science, another knowledge. These weren't local coastal charts for fishermen. This is a direct indication of a global system, a kind of ancient internet of planetary knowledge, accessible only to a select few. An ancient Wikipedia, whose pages were torn out and burned, but a few fragments survived. Piri Reis, unknowingly, acted as an archivist of the apocalypse. He collected these surviving fragments. He thought he was creating a weapon for his sultan. But in reality, he was placing a time capsule in the archives, a message in a bottle for us. But what information was on these ancient maps? What did they know about our world that was so carefully erased from history? What exactly turned the work of the Ottoman admiral into one of the most explosive artifacts? The answer was one, Antarctica. Imagine 1929, the cool air of a museum vault, a group of scientists, holding their breath, bent over the discovery. They see the familiar outlines of Europe, Africa, the coast of Brazil. Everything is in place, accounting for 16th century accuracy. Their gaze slides down the map, along South America, and suddenly freezes. Where the continent should end in a raging ocean, it continues. It curves eastward and stretches along the bottom edge of the parchment. A chill of realization runs down their spines. This is land that shouldn't be there. At first, it was dismissed as an error, a cartographer's fantasy. But decades later, as science advanced, the map was re-examined. In 1949, a joint British-Swedish expedition conducted the first seismic survey of the Antarctic ice sheet. Think about it. They used shock waves to penetrate the icy shell, like taking an X-ray of the planet. This allowed scientists to see the land beneath kilometers of ice for the first time. When the resulting profiles of the subglacial relief of Queen Maud Land were overlaid on the Piri Reis map, a gasp of astonishment rippled through the room. They matched. The outlines of the coastline, the fjords, and even the river valleys, which no human had seen in modern history, all coincided. And here the enigma turns into a chilling paradox. Geological data from the analysis of bottom sediments is irrefutable. The last time Queen Maud Land was ice-free and had such a relief was approximately 400 BC. 6,000 years ago. This means that someone, an unknown civilization, possessed technology comparable to mid-20th century technology, but in an era when, according to our understanding, the pinnacle of engineering was the construction of megaliths. Someone was able to circumnavigate and map an entire continent thousands of years before the advent of writing. This knowledge was absolutely inaccessible to 16th century civilizations. Columbus, Magellan, Piri Reis, they were great navigators, but they could not see through ice. They had no seismographs or satellites. This knowledge came from a much deeper, almost mythical past. It survived millennia, passed from map to map like a precious relic, until it appeared on the Ottoman admiral's parchment. So who created the original source? Who were these Stone Age cartographers? This question led one American historian down a path that academic science considered heresy. His name was Charles Hapgood, a history professor at Keene College in New Hampshire, a man with a mind that wasn't afraid to ask heretical questions. In the mid-20th century, when the scientific world was unshakably confident in linear progress, Hapgood looked at the Piri Reis map and saw a crack, a deep crack in the very foundation of official history. He was a loner, armed only with logic and a fragile piece of parchment. He stormed the granite citadel of academic consensus. In 1966, he published a book that exploded the scientific world, a ticking time bomb, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings. The essence of his theory is simple and shocking. Hapgood hypothesized that the Piri Reis map is a legacy, the legacy of a prehistoric civilization of navigators, a civilization that achieved the highest level of development, mapped the entire planet, but was wiped off the face of the Earth by a global cataclysm. Perhaps a catastrophic shift of the Earth's crust that caused planetary-scale earthquakes at the end of the last ice age. Only fragments of their knowledge survived, and these fragments reached us in the form of impossible maps. Does this sound like fantasy to you? Academics thought so too. Hapgood's theory was ridiculed in scientific journals, but then he received support from the most unexpected quarter. The U.S. Air Force became interested in his work. Lieutenant Colonel Harold Ohlmeyer of the 8th Reconnaissance Technical Squadron conducted his own analysis of the map. His verdict, stated in an official letter dated July 6, 1960, stunned the skeptics. Military experts confirmed the map depicts the coast of Antarctica beneath the ice sheet, and it does so with astonishing accuracy, an accuracy unattainable before the advent of seismic surveying in 1949. The dispute instantly ceased to be merely humanitarian. Technology and cold mathematics intervened. Hapgood's hypothesis isn't just a pretty story, it's based on cold, measurable facts, on technical details of the map that couldn't have been accidental. Think about it. The map's longitude is determined with an error of only half a degree. Longitude is your exact address on the east-west line. Europeans couldn't do this for another 250 years. So how accurate is this map really? Are its anomalies enough to rewrite all of history? To answer, we need to uncover its mathematical heart, to understand the complex projection and the laws of spherical trigonometry that underlie it. Because numbers, unlike interpretations, cannot lie. Even if you remove Antarctica from it, the map remains a puzzle, but not for historians, for mathematicians. Imagine them unfolding the fragile parchment under bright lights in ringing silence. They run computer simulations, and the low hum of the servers becomes the soundtrack to their search. They're trying to understand not what is depicted, but how. What mathematical model, what projection did its creator use? For them, it's not an ancient document, it's a geometric cipher, a code left by someone who understood the principles of spherical trigonometry and the true dimensions of the planet in a way no one in the 16th century did. To grasp the scale, recall humanity's main navigational challenge, latitude. Your position north or south of the equator was long determined by the North Star, simply. But longitude, that was a nightmare, a salty fog of uncertainty. Longitude is your east-west address. To calculate it, you need to know the exact time in two places simultaneously, on the ship and at the port of departure. But at sea, pendulum clocks were hopelessly inaccurate due to pitching. Their creaking and uneven movement drove navigators mad. The greatest minds, from Galileo to Newton, wrestled with this problem for centuries. The British Parliament, in 1714, offered a royal prize of £20,000, a fortune, and the problem was only solved in 1761 with the invention of John Harrison's marine chronometer. Only then did navigation become a science. And now pay attention. Analysis of the Piri Reis map shows that longitude is determined with astonishing accuracy, an average error of only half a degree. This level of precision became available to European navigators only 250 years after Piri Reis rolled up his scroll. The Ottoman admiral in 1513 possessed data that Europe would only acquire in the time of Captain James Cook. This is not just an anomaly, it is mathematically impossible. This would have required either a global network of time-synchronized observatories or a technology of which we know nothing. Numbers don't lie. Mathematics, unlike history, does not tolerate the subjunctive mood. And here it says that the creators of the original maps knew about spherical trigonometry and the exact size of the Earth long before Copernicus. The evidence is laid on the table, one piece after another. But what if we're looking at all this incorrectly? What if there's a simple, rational explanation that's being overlooked? What do the skeptics say about this? The academic world steps onto the stage. These are not villains in dark offices. They are guardians of the scientific method. people who demand strict, verifiable evidence before rewriting history textbooks. Their mantra is simple: extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And the Piri Reis map, in their opinion, does not carry such weight. They look at the same parchment we do, but they see a completely different story. A story not of a miracle, but of human error. Their main argument is simple and devastatingly elegant. The mysterious southern land on the map is not Antarctica at all. It's simply the southern tip of South America, Patagonia. According to them, the cartographer, upon reaching the edge of the parchment, simply curved the coastline eastward to fit it on the sheet. You can almost feel his hand reaching the edge of the skin, and he makes a pragmatic decision. This was a common practice for old portolans, distortions, uneven contours, errors, all normal for cartography of that era. Therefore, there is no phantom continent. There is only artistic license and a lack of space on the gazelle skin. This theory seems logical. It explains the strange shape of the coast, returning us to the comfortable world of familiar history. But it begins to fray at the seams as soon as you start asking uncomfortable questions. If it's just a fabricated bend in South America, then where did the rather accurate depiction of a mountain range, eerily reminiscent of the Andes, come from? Where are the rivers that actually exist, like the Rio de la Plata drawn? And most importantly, this theory in no way, absolutely no way, explains the phenomenal accuracy in determining longitude. As if plugging one leak, this version punches several new and far more dangerous holes in the ship's hull. The skeptical version solves one mystery but creates several new, even more complex ones. The debate reaches a stalemate. The air in the debate room becomes thick. Hapgood's supporters point to mathematics and details that cannot be faked. Skeptics point to possible errors and assumptions characteristic of the era. It seems the truth will forever remain buried under layers of ink and academic ambition. If the Piri Reis map were the only such artifact, it could be dismissed as a stroke of genius, a lucky compilation. But it's not alone. And this fact transforms a single anomaly into a system, into a frightening pattern. Forget Istanbul. Our investigation goes global. We hack into the archives of the Vatican, the National Library of France, and in this dusty silence, where the air smells of old leather and vanished empires, you begin to see ghosts, the same ghost of an unnamed civilization. It gazes at you from other maps. The Piri Reis map is not a lonely island. It is part of an entire archipelago, a phantom atlas scattered across different centuries and countries. 1531. French mathematician Laurent Fine creates his world map, and right in the center of the South Pole, he draws it, Antarctica. Not just a white spot with the inscription, Unknown Land. No, it's a living, detailed continent, with clearly delineated mountains, valleys, and rivers flowing into the ocean. His drawing eerily matches what we know about the subglacial relief today. Let's continue. 1569. Gerard Mercator. the father of modern cartography, the man whose projection you use in Google Maps every day without even knowing his name. He does the same thing. He also places a detailed image of Antarctica on his maps. All of them, with the confidence of geniuses, drew on parchment what they could not have seen. And here we must pause and understand. Fine. Mercator. These were not dreamers, not fantasy authors. These were titans of scientific thought of their time, people for whom accuracy was a religion. And they, like Piri Reis, left us a key, in notes in the margins, in prefaces to their atlases. They almost shout to us across the centuries, "We are not inventing, we are copying." They explicitly state that they used ancient maps found in European libraries. They trusted these sources more than the accounts of their contemporaries. Think about it. The founding fathers of modern geography believed in the existence of an ancient cartographic tradition. So why do we, their descendants, so stubbornly refuse to believe them? What do we have in the end? Not one random anomaly, but a whole series of impossible maps. They were created by the best minds of the Renaissance, and all of them point to the same lost original, a kind of zero map of humanity. We have opened the artifact. We have weighed the theories and listened to the skeptics. We have seen how a single clue transforms into a system. Now it's time to put all the fragments of this code together and finally see the dazzling and terrifying picture in its entirety. Let's lay the evidence on the table. It's a steel chain of logic. Link 1, Ottoman admiral Piri Reis. In 1513, he states that he compiled the map from 20 ancient sources, including maps from the time of Alexander the Great. This is a direct indication of a global cartographic network 800 years before him. Link 2, historian Charles Hapgood. He proposes a theory of a prehistoric civilization of navigators. Link 3, confirmation by the U.S. Air Force from 1960. Military experts conclude the map depicts subglacial relief with an accuracy unattainable before the seismic survey of 1949. And finally, Link 4, an entire phantom atlas. The maps of Mercator Fine. They confirm the existence of this lost cartographic tradition. This is not one anomaly. It is a system where each link strengthens the previous one. Let's return to the very beginning, to Topkapi Palace, to the old parchment. Feel again the dry, fragile gazelle skin under your fingers. Perhaps we have been looking at it incorrectly. It's not just a map, it's a message in a bottle, cast into the ocean of time. A message from a civilization that knew the world as well as we do, but disappeared, wiped away by a wave of some global catastrophe. And Piri Reis, he wasn't just a cartographer. He was the one who found this bottle on the shore of history. He didn't fully understand what he held in his hands, but as a true scholar, he deemed it important. He preserved this message for us. He became the last link in a broken chain of knowledge without even realizing it. These maps force us to ask a very uncomfortable question. We are raised on the idea of linear progress, of an arrow of time flying only forward, from the darkness of ignorance to the light of modern technology. But what if this isn't so? What if history is a cycle? A cycle of rises and falls, where great civilizations reach incredible heights and then disappear, leaving behind only fragments of knowledge that their descendants mistake for myths and fairy tales. Perhaps the Piri Reis map is not just a mystery of the past, it's a warning, written in faded ink on fragile parchment. A warning about how easily everything can be lost, and how quickly everything can be forgotten. Ultimately, the decision is yours to believe in a series of coincidences and errors, or in the existence of lost knowledge. But consider this: what scares you more? This is a choice between two kinds of abyss. The thought that a civilization comparable to ours in knowledge existed before us and vanished without a trace, or the thought that we are the first and utterly alone on this path of development, with no one to learn from. Which thought makes your heart beat faster with deep, primal fear? Think about it, and if you want to share your opinion, write just one word in the comments: disappearance, or loneliness,